Welcome to our coverage of the 2024 NHL Draft. It is barn burner. It is swelteringly hot. It is circa stadium swim. Jack, I am home. They have found me. I am in my rightful place. I know where I want my ashes scattered. What an incredible setup we've got for the next few days as we are live in Las Vegas. The host of the 2024 draft with the Calgary Flames will select 2nd and 9th. Incredibly busy show we've got lined up. Ryan Pike's going to join us from Calgary at the end of the show as we talk all things Calgary Flames. Just 48 hours and change away from them selecting potentially 9th and 28th in round number 1 if they don't go ahead and add more. Also, Frank Seravalli going to join us in a matter of minutes to talk about an incredible amount of NHL gossip. There are people from the NHL all around Las Vegas. We got in yesterday. It's buzzing. Gossip, rumors, wild speculation, and really just a whole lot of uncertainty once you get beyond Macklin Celebrini at number 1. That's just the draft. Never mind what's going on with Mitch Marner and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Does he start the season there? Utah feels like the biggest wild card out of the 32-team league right now as they've got money to spend and an owner that wants to win in a brand new market. Not to mention some other incredible storylines like Steven Stamkos not having a deal with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Is he headed to market? Where is Jake Guentzel going? And, of course, Reinhart, Montour, Toffoli, Marchessault, Domi, Bertuzzi, Tanev, Zadorov, Lindholm. Oh, Jacko, we got a ton to cover today. This is going to be absolutely nails. But I need the update. You can see behind me we have like a 2-story, like heaven massive sports book, odds on one side, games everywhere, Euro, Copa America baseball odds behind us here. Paint us the picture from Calgary. Are you at home in the basement? Or are you back at the studios in Martelou?
I am at home. Absolute shit show around the house here as we gear up for a wedding. I'm in the guest bedroom, tons of luggage around me. I'm clothes scattered everywhere. So just a shit show here in Calgary. Weather's not too bad, a little bit cloudy, but not as hot as it is in Vegas. Oh boy.
Yeah, we got a little update for you from Vegas. This was just about 10 minutes before we jumped on air here. If you're looking at what the afternoon in Vegas holds in store for us. Hot, turning into hotter, and then it gets even hotter, where it's going to stay at even hotter before getting back to hot. And yeah, we're sweating in the shade here. I literally ran to the shower and just soaked the mullet, threw the hat back on, put the shirt back on. It is quite something. But everyone's hanging out in the pool. Drinks going to be cold when we're done the show. And I tell you what, there's not a lot of places I'd rather be right now, Jackie. We got this dialed in pretty good. So
yeah, I'm jealous. The next barn burner vacation better be back in Vegas.
I don't think that's a bad idea. Like, no one's ever been like, yeah, I've been to Vegas once, I'm good. It's like, no, there's so much to do. You can never really do it all. And there's always something crazy happening here. So I'm kind of with you. If we do the barn burner nation vacation, Vegas this year's got to be right up there. I think there've been talk about the schedule dropping in the next week or so. And if we get that going on, that will allow us to dive into some other schedules. When does NFL go? Do we have some other events we can do? Could we tie it into 2 games, 1 weekend, flight, hotels? Join us. It was an absolute banger at Mullet Arena back in January. And I know that original crop of 28 guys or whatever it was, there can be a lot of renewal from that crew. So I'm kind of with you. There's also always music and stuff going on, Jack. No, you've been getting photos. People think they're spotting me in the wild here. I don't want to make this about me, but I do have to just sort of tamper down some of these rumors. There are pictures floating around. This is not me, Jack, okay? Now, there may be music festivals going on in Vegas, but God, that does look like me. And there was a couple hours of yesterday. I don't really – well, I'm pretty sure that's not me. That's where I'll leave that one as Vegas. It's always going on in Vegas, Jack. We hit the Felt last night, a very, very productive night for Team Nations Network. So that's the update here from Vegas. We're awaiting our NHL Insider. We also have our Betway Bets of the Day. We will get Ryan Pike in here to discuss the job that Craig Conroy's done, but fascinated about where we're at with Frank Seravalli's thoughts on the goalie market. We haven't talked with him since the Markstrom trade, never mind the, I guess, subsequent Linus Ullmark deal. And I think it sort of was a bit of pause for Flames fans to say, hang on, okay, New Jersey's talking about 10. We didn't get that. Everyone, there's Holtz. That didn't happen either. What the hell's going on here? And then you see the return for Linus Ullmark, who won the Vezina Trophy 2 years ago. And I think maybe Flames fans are thinking, you know what? Maybe that wasn't as one-sided the trade as it looked at first glance. Maybe that's just what the market is for NHL netminders, and never mind guys that are 34 years old. Jacob Marchessault, of course, is that heading into his first season with the New Jersey Devils. In terms of scheduling, here's what we can tell you about what's going on here. We ran the mock draft this morning, Jack, that seemed to have a bit of interest. If you wanted to give a little summary there, what stood out to you when Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects and Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff took turns GMing round one here in a Sphere mock draft for this summer?
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out, I was in the chat while the mock draft was playing live, and Iginla going 4. I don't think anyone really was expecting that. Everyone wants Iginla here in Calgary. That's what we're all pushing for, but he seems to be going pretty high in these mock drafts. So 4 to, what was it, Columbus?
4 to Columbus.
A lot of people were a little shocked to see that this morning.
I was ready for there to be like this, oh my gosh, two more. He keeps sliding. Like how long? It just ended really early. It wasn't dramatic at all. I believe our insider, Frank Seravalli, is ready, Jack. I don't know if I can't see him on my end, but if you can, let's bring him in.
Yeah, let's bring in Frankie.
Our NHL Insider, brought to you by Horse Racing Alberta. Exciting live standardbred racing every Friday at 2:15 and Saturday at 12:45 at Century Downs, just north of the city on Highway 2. Check out thehorses.com for more as we bring Frank in on a sweltering Vegas summer day. Frankie, how are you, bud? You got in late last night. You've been traveling like a door-to-door salesman the last 2 months. Are you doing okay? You surviving this?
Yeah, I'm good. Hey, I'm inside, so no complaints at all, and great view of across town here of the Strip and the Bellagio fountain behind me. I have absolutely zero complaints.
Yeah, and I guess the offer was extended. You could come out and sweat with us in the sun, but you've decided to stay in your air-conditioned suite.
Look, I'm not built for this weather. I don't know if you are. There's not enough booze or water for me to be out there, so I think I'm perfectly content here working on my trade targets board.
Love it. Yeah, it's an incredibly busy time. I guess just a really quick thought. You were back and forth covering that final, one for the ages. I know there was a lot of angst in Calgary given the rivalry with the Oilers, but if you strip away all that, just a classic that I don't think anyone's going to forget anytime soon. You got to put it amongst your best finals you've seen in your life, I'm guessing. It's
the best final I've seen in my life. I think that was number 15 for me.
Wow.
I said this on the morning of Game 7, and it's not hyperbole. Like, I don't know that I'll ever cover a more consequential NHL game. So much on the line.
Yeah.
A historic comeback that they were looking at. And the reason I said NHL and qualified it is because there's, probably some pretty good Olympic battles to come between the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah, I am excited about that. We got about 6 months to get geared up for those, so we won't waste any time on that there. I know you're busy. You're talking trade targets, so why don't we start there? I feel like Mitch Marner's the big name, but boy, it just feels like the tip of the iceberg is all of a sudden there's a lot of cap space for teams. Now, it doesn't mean people have room, but I expect a lot of maneuvering between now and July 1, which is just Monday. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been a little bit quiet to start. I mean, I know we had a couple things that happened the last few days, more on the minor end. Everyone that I've talked to this morning to this point, upwards of half the league already, they said it's remarkable to them sort of how quiet it's been. I think a lot of people are focused on some final meetings with the draft and trying to play out the draft board as much as they can. And that said, there are some really big names on this list. Marty Necas, you mentioned Mitch Marner. What about Jacob Chychrun in Ottawa? Like, there's quite a few things, quite a few dominoes still to fall that I think when you look at how this week goes, we didn't talk buyouts. We didn't talk qualifying offers. The draft table is crazy. There's a lot of things in the air at this exact period in time.
So one of the areas that we did get some clarity was in the goaltending market. New Jersey goes out and get Jacob Markstrom, next year's first, which given where New Jersey's was in the cup odds and where they are for next year, you'd expect that to be somewhere between pick 20 and 32. They also get Kevin Ball, a 6'6", stay-at-home defensive first defenseman who's 24 years of age. And then we saw the Linus Ullmark deal where the Bruins ate the remaining 4 years of Joonas Korpisalo's deal, or at least 75% of the money of that. And they also got a pick, but it was late in the 20s. Is that just a reflection of where NHL organizations are at right now with goalies? I feel like everyone was a little let down. Ottawa didn't have to give up number 7. New Jersey didn't have to give up number 10. Is that just what goalies are worth these days?
It's kind of what goalies have been worth forever. I mean, teams are not willing to pay high asset acquisition costs. They're not willing to pay, for the most part, unless you're in a very small circle of top-end goalies, high-end money on the salary cap. That's just not how it works. It speaks to the volatility of the position. It speaks to the fickle nature of the position, and also really how readily available these guys are. I mean, we're going to have more goalies available, and we do at this exact moment in time, than we do spots available in the annual game of goaltending musical chairs. So think about what took place in the last week. You have Markstrom, you have Ullmark, you have Kemper. That really only leaves a few teams that are looking to improve their goaltending situation. You've got Toronto, you've got Ottawa obviously fixed theirs, you've got Detroit, you've got maybe Colorado. It's not a very long list, and a couple teams are going to be left holding the bag saying, hey, I have someone here. Look at Minnesota, Philip Gustafsson, that they're not really generating a ton of interest on, that I think could be an impact piece on a low acquisition cost relative, and also low on your cap hit, that you could actually significantly improve your goaltending situation year over year without having to do a ton of crazy heavy lifting.
It's funny because like a year ago, we talk about it in Canada, this great drought of net money. Like, oh, Aiden Hill would be the guy at the Olympics. Now it's like, oh, Stuart Skinner would be the guy at the Olympics. And maybe those are great goalies. Maybe it's a reflection of just how volatile the position is, how thin it is in Canada. But it really is a flavor of the month position. You could have the greatest pedigree or be a nobody, and you get hot for a month. It doesn't really matter. You can be the difference maker for a team. Do you believe Nashville is seriously looking to move UC Saros, or is all this name in trade rumor stuff from the deadline through to this offseason maybe just a bit of leverage or I guess gamesmanship as they enter contract negotiations? We haven't really seen someone like Askarov come in without a mentor of sorts, and Saros himself spent years mentoring under Rene. What do you see Nashville doing?
You know, it's funny. I hate how this sounds when I say it, but he's such a straight up guy that I don't know that there's a ton of gamesmanship in Barry Trotz to play it that way. I think they're really torn. I think they authentically view UC Saros as the backbone of this team, and he's been that and could be that for the foreseeable future. At the same time, they also know that Askarov's is coming, to your point, and then throw in the fact that Saros needs a new contract. What does that next deal look like as the cap gets its first meaningful increase in 5 years? What we're talking about is a goalie who's potentially somewhere between $8.5 to $10 million a year. Are you willing to pay that type of price for UC Saros, as good as he is? I'm not sure that I am, as much as I like him, and I'm probably less inclined to do so given the fact that they have Askarov there waiting in the wings. Is it possible to pair Askarov with, pick another guy that's on the market this summer, Lauren Brossoit, and go into next season that way for a team that isn't probably viewed at league-wide as an authentic Stanley Cup contender? To me, I'd much rather do that than devote 8 to 10% of my cap space to a goalie who's going to be on the other side of 30 soon enough and is, by the way, undersized at that. So I'm not slagging Saros. I'm just outlining the situation for you and explaining how difficult of a spot the Preds are in.
Yeah. Well, and it's just such a volatile position. I mean, we're talking about a guy that I believe is top 6 in Vezina voting the last 4 years, and it's like, yeah, we'd rather not pay him because who knows? We could get the same production from some nobodies. Maybe Talbot and Askarov could give you the same.
What would you do?
You know what? I love what Saros has been, but I feel like if they felt like he was their most important player, he'd be locked up by now, or they will lock him up. But it's just goalies, man. I mean, the smartest data people out there, maybe the Carolinas of the world, like no one puts less of a premium on spending on that position because it's just so volatile. Maybe that's the smart play, is just never to buy good years, always bet on bounce backs and chase value.
Well,
and if that's the case, it's Askarov and a vet, right?
Just hope that as you acknowledge that you're not going to spend as much, that you're not going to get elite top end goaltending, but that you could get maybe something reasonably close to it, or maybe even just league average or better, that's enough to be a playoff team and give yourself a shot and devote your core towards better defensemen and better goaltending.
You noted you're working on your trade targets board. Marner is obviously a big name. You mentioned Natchez, which has been out there for a while. He needs a contract as an RFA. Chychrun is a guy they went and added, and now suddenly there's too many guys that play his side of the defense and they're moving him again. It kind of feels like the DeBrincat thing. I know there's a change in GM, but man, Ottawa's turning a buck into 75 cents here on some of these trades. What else do you expect will get traction? Laine clearly is a name we've heard. Zegras doesn't feel like a long-term fit for Pat Verbeek, and even John Gibson is a guy that's been rumored for a while, but maybe just makes too much money to move.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just one of the teams that's in a really interesting spot. Anaheim, in terms of what they've got coming, another number 3 overall pick this year that, all of a sudden it's really not going to be very long with the collection of talent that they've gotten to be an impact team in the West. It's a couple years away, but when they get there, they're probably going to be pretty good. Odds would indicate that's the case. Other guys on the trade targets board, by the way, I'm also fascinated with, this is one of the items that I was just typing on, is how many of the top 10 picks do we see move depending on how that board shakes out? Like, I think when you have the Flames at 9, depending on the way the first 3 picks go, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the Flames try and leverage whatever they can to move up and slide up to, whether it's Columbus at 4 or whoever's at 5, Montreal, to really make things interesting.
It's fascinating because I've been saying don't trade up. You might get your favorite guy that's not Celebrini sliding to you at 9 anyway, but the closer we get to this draft, the more I'm of the mind that TJ Ginland will not be there for them at 9 if that's who they like. And I look at Utah and Ottawa as teams that are huge wild cards here. They're not necessarily teams that need to use those picks. They're teams that are trying to, I guess, fast forward their roster into more competitive windows, right?
No, I was going to say I think Anaheim's the biggest wild card.
Okay.
So let's play it out this way, and this is pure hypothetical. Let's say that Celebrini goes 1 and Lev Shunov goes 2. Do the Anaheim Ducks take Demidov at 3? And if they don't, does all hell break loose at 4?
Yeah. I think Demidov could absolutely slide, and I could see Anaheim saying, we have a very nice stable of prospects. We'll take the 6'7", smooth skating, mean defenseman. He seems to fit Pat Verbeek's type of team, does he not?
That's how I see it, which is why I'm saying maybe it's not. And I'm not saying they don't like him. Of course they do, and they know him better than anyone. But maybe it's not TJ Ginla that they'd be signing up to try and get.
Yeah, it is fascinating what's going to happen here right after San Jose. The draft starting at 2 sounds crazy, but I believe we're there. What about Ottawa and Utah? They do feel like teams to me that we don't have a book on because one suddenly is very eager to spend and has all this cap space, and the other they thought they'd be good already. I don't know how much patience they have for another kid for 2 years to blossom into a player, so to speak, in Ottawa.
Yeah, I don't think they have much patience for that, and it might be 5 years. That's how long it takes.
Sure.
I think they're in go mode. I think the Buffalo Sabres are. I think the Detroit Red Wings are. All these teams that for whatever reason have kind of been on the same timeline where the last 3 years we've been asking the question in September, have they done enough to put themselves in the conversation for the playoffs? The Wings falling just short in the East this year on quite literally the final day of the season, and the Sens being out of it in early November along with the Sabres. Like there are really tough decisions to make, and you're talking about teams that have been pretty patient throughout this process, that not advocating or saying that it's time to throw caution to the wind. It's just, you can't then go about rebuilding the rebuild. And that's kind of what the Sabres are looking at if they don't start to ultimately make progress. When it comes to the Sens, they've got to figure out their defense core. We talked about Chychrun and how they can't pay $24 million to the left side of their defense. Steve Stamkos just recently said in the last hour or so that Thomas Chabot is not in the mix. And then we've got, a number of other teams out there, Buffalo included. Detroit's in the market for a goalie and a defenseman. They've been, I think, in conversation with Anaheim the last couple days about Gibson. There's a lot happening.
What about New Jersey? They said 10's in play, and I sort of feel the same way about them as I would about what you said with Ottawa and Detroit. They might have been the biggest disappointment last year because they came in at top 5 Stanley Cup odds in the fall. Now they've got Markstrom. Is that 10 a big chip to add a final piece in their mind, be it a defenseman or an impact forward?
It's hard to say final piece for a team that didn't make the playoffs, right? I mean, what we're talking about is a team that has 3 really good young defensemen in Nemitz and Hughes and also Seamus Casey, who they got to turn pro. They've got some of the best young, talented forwards in the game in Hughes and Brad and Heischer. They had an unlucky year with injury, with Dougie Hamilton missing the bulk of it with the torn pec muscle. And you would think that all of those things, plus now finally for the first time in Tom Fitzgerald's tenure, solving the goaltending situation with Markstrom and Allen, like there's probably out of 82 nights, they're going to feel really good about whoever's in their net for the bulk of them. They're still trying to do everything though. So in some ways, I'd say you're right in that it doesn't really necessarily make sense for the current build of their team to hang on to that if they could get an impact piece. But then I'm also looking at it from another perspective of look at the teams that have hit on their first round picks and you say, what could an impact player at 10 do for us 3 years from now? That might take us and that player might be the final piece. It's just, do you have the patience to get to that point when it matters?
Okay, Monday feels like light years away in terms of the things we have to get done. We've got the draft round 1 Friday, round 2.
Damage you're going to do to your liver between now and then.
Well, we'll see. It was a decent start last night. As long as you keep winning on the blackjack tables, they keep bringing you drinks, Frank. I made out like a bandit if you factored in the free beverages last night. But Monday's a long way away for GMs. There's a lot of decisions to be made before then. What do you expect to happen with Stamkos? Is he actually going to get to market?
I still have a hard time believing it. I don't think he's been outrageous in his ask. I don't know what it is, but I'm told it's certainly within the realm of possibility. Like he's not going into this saying I need to be an $8.5 million player at this point in his career. He's meant everything to that franchise. He's been, when you think Lightning, he's on their Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
And I just don't know how they don't get something done. What I would look at is a guy like Tanner Jeannot as they try and clear out some cap space. He's got his no trade clause that kicks in on Monday. I believe it's a 10-team no trade. That makes all the sense in the world to me to be considering a guy to potentially move out to create space just to keep Stamkos. I think you have to find a way to do it.
Well, and he's been tied to Calgary, albeit just in rumors. But what are you getting in Jeannot? Because clearly it's not the guy Tampa thought they were trading for, or he wouldn't be on the block again.
It's a good question. I don't know what he is. Obviously, he's a big body guy that had one magical season that has really been unable to put it all together and do it in a consistent way since then. I love his story as the Oxbow Ox. I think he's someone that has, potential, but did he find lightning in a bottle one year in Nashville that he's not able to ultimately replicate again? And as the money continues to go up, it's harder and harder, I think, for some guys to deliver and get back to that same level again. And I think those are fair questions to ask about Jeannot. And not only that, the Lightning gave up so much to get him. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th round pick, I think it was. Like it was crazy at the time. People's jaws were on the floor that it hasn't worked out. It's a really tough asset management thing to turn around and then flip him now if that ends up being the case.
So Stamkos may be the biggest name, but is there a bigger market for a guy than Jake Guentzel, who seems to fit everywhere? Oh, he'd be great in Detroit. He'd be great in Vancouver. Oh, the Carolina would love to have him. I'm sure Crosby'd love to have him back. What is that the biggest market for Guentzel right now?
I'd say between Guentzel and some of the top end defensemen, like Matt, this is going to surprise you, but Matt Roy coming out of LA, or, maybe you could make the case for Chandler Stevenson, but I'd say in terms of interest at that level of dollars, it's borderline unmatched when you consider where Guentzel is. And you look at his productivity, his consistency. This is a guy that, you can kind of, while he's in the lineup, you can reliably expect him to score at a 40-goal pace. He's 14th in the league in goals over the last 6 years. He's 27th in points, 20-something in points per game. I mean, this is a top 30 player right now that you're looking at that changes scenery. Everyone said, oh, he only does it because of Sid. He goes to Carolina and scores well north at a point per game pace. And this is a guy that's also led a postseason in goals and has a Stanley Cup. And by the way, doesn't have a ton of wear on that tread on his tires because he was a little bit of a late bloomer, not making it to the NHL until 22 or 23.
Notable UFAs on the Cup champion Panthers. This could get interesting. They might be partying right through to July 1, some of these guys, and I suppose that's why you have agents. But could you handicap OEL, Montour, and then the 59-goal man, Sam Reinhart?
Well, they're obviously saying goodbye to a few of these guys. The question is who and how painful is it going to be for Florida? At the same time, I look at their situation and say what opportunity they have to really strengthen and rebalance that team's cap table and defense core. Like Reinhart, it's such an interesting case now that they've won. He's been asking a lot. I think they put a significant deal on the table already at 8 years times $9.5 million. I think that was out there months ago. The fact that he didn't sign it, he's said all the right things. He's a really smart guy. He wants to be there. Maybe the smartest hockey player I've ever covered. And he seems to want to be there. They seem to want to have him. But I wonder if the calculus changes for both sides now. Instead of leaving money on the table, if you're him, because of the no state tax thing, and I know that's not really leaving money on the table, but I wonder, like, do you absolutely want to stay and try and go for a third straight Stanley Cup final? Do you want to go back to back? You want to be competitive for sure, but you've got lots of different options on the table now, and your name is going to be with those guys forever. And similarly, from a team perspective, I'm sure you watch him score the game-winning goal in Game 7, and you're like, yeah, I really want to have this guy. But are you willing to commit such an exorbitant part of your salary cap to him, or are you better off trying to get 3 guys or 4 guys to fill out the potential, significant pay that you're allotting to one guy? It really depends. I could see it from any number of angles, and that's not to sound Pollyannish when I answer it. It's just I wonder what winning does to that equation.
Yeah, it's a fascinating discussion. He's also a guy that struggled mightily, and if you could place a value on winning versus just the bag, Sam's seen that too. It's fascinating. He can pick. He can try to get it all, I suppose. We know there's significant interest in Chris Tanev and a Dallas reunion. Is it just trying to fit him under the cap? Is that the challenge there, or is he happy to feel the significant number of suitors July 1?
I think he's another one of those guys that's looking for a blend. He certainly doesn't want to be underpaid and is probably not going to be taking the hometown discount. So that said, how do you find a way to marry what your needs are and what the market is willing to bear with a team that has a true chance to win the Stanley Cup? And I just thought he was such a good fit.
Yeah.
I can't really envision them going out to try and find a better version of Chris Tanev because he brought such a different element to the Stars. But at the same time, I think no one's going to be shocked when I say this. I also really wonder about how well a guy like Tanev ages, just given the wear and tear on his body, and that, we saw in the playoffs, hurt again, battles through it, but wasn't as effective against the Oilers in the bulk of that series because he's obviously playing at 70%. So much of it is to admire, but it's also to his own detriment, right? And so I think he makes sense to stay, but I think more than anything, he's probably going to need a little bit of term, which always gets dangerous at his age.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I know even just approaching the trade deadline, Flames fans were cringing as he seemingly every second or third game would head down the tunnel again. And you're like, is this the one that turns the asset to zero? I can't imagine trying to, model in his aging curve with the way he plays.
But also knowing that he's different than whatever else they have in Dallas. He played really well when he was healthy and really wants to be there. Like, he's checking so many boxes for you, but it puts your heart in your throat when you go to put pen to paper on a deal like that.
Totally. Our cab driver last night really needs some good insight on this one, Frank. Jonathan Marchessault, one of the original cast-offs of that first-year Vegas Golden Knights team. He's a UFA. Can they make room for him, or is it about finding his fit elsewhere? Because Vegas has just been ruthless with guys when they think they're teeing off on the back nine.
They are trying to do everything that they can to keep him. I think this is one that's probably going to go down to the wire. They're trying to find coins in couch cushions to be able to keep this guy. Chandler Stevenson is as good as gone. A tough choice for them, but compared to Marchessault, not really as consequential in their eyes. 42-goal season for another guy that's aging really well. And Marchessault hits free agency at, how many guys have a career year like that at that age? Really impressive stuff, and they recognize his value. It's just, can they get close to what that is, so that he also is one of those guys that doesn't have to be happy.
Yeah. Last couple for you. I know they loved Zadorov in Vancouver, but he absolutely wants to get paid. If it's not Vancouver, he'll be onto his 6th team, which is wild to me, but also speaks to how you can dream on that set of skills that he's got. Is it simply Guentzel, domino falls, they go from there? Because I think they liked him, but I think they'd rather, if they had to pick one or the other, it's giving the money to Guentzel, right?
Yeah, I think that's their priority and pecking order. I think they can have all those things. I think they can find a way to have Guentzel, to re-sign Zadorov, to find a deal for Tyler Myers, and to give whatever's left over to Artur Shilov's in net. But in the middle, that involves absolutely finding a suitor and taker for Ilya Mikheyev.
Right.
They can't make the math work in that equation without moving him. They've circled back to teams, I think, in the last few days to try. I don't think the Wallman situation and that trade helped the case. But nonetheless, they are a team that is certainly trying to be as aggressive as they have been for the last year. Can they pull it all off? I actually think they can.
Interesting. Hey, man, thanks for doing this. You've been run through the gauntlet here. I hope you're going to get some sleep, and I also hope that you don't get some sleep so we can catch up and I can see this Floyd Mayweather suite that you've got going on down at the Cosmo.
Dude, just stay away from me. I don't need to get sucked into the Pinder vortex tonight.
Come on, you left a bunch of chips on the table not coming out last night, man. I'm telling you.
I'm all right with that. This is day 59 on the road since the playoffs started, and I'm going downhill on a scooter with one wheel. I'm just trying to make it to the finish line.
All right, buddy. Well, before you go, we just want to tell everyone Monday is Canada Day. We'll be off, but you will not. That'll be the end of the road for you, I hope, in terms of getting on some vacation immediately after your free agency special. I will encourage everyone to jump on 9 till noon Mountain Time to check out yourself, Tyler Remchuk, and the rest of the crew as you weigh in on all those signings we expect to pour in. Thanks so much for doing this, buddy. I know it's been a serious haul for you, and I do hope to see you, even if I can't sneak a few beers down your gullet.
Yep, sounds good. We'll find a way to connect, I'm sure.
All right, thanks, Frankie. There's Frank Seravalli, our NHL insider, brought to you by Horse Racing Alberta. A reminder, you can catch exciting live standardbred racing every Friday at 2:15 and Saturdays at 12:45 at Century Downs. For more information, go to thehorses.com. Okay, boy, a lot there. And again, if Frank sounds busy and we started talking about all the layers involved with the draft here, and we start talking about the incredible number of players that either are seeking trades or teams would like to move, or we just think change of scenery candidates. We didn't even get into Rutger McGroarty here, the highly touted Jets prospect that after being selected in the first round and deciding, yeah, maybe I'm not going to go to Winnipeg. I don't know that I agreed with their philosophy in the spring when they said, yeah, we'll sign you, but we're not going to guarantee you playing time. There's a lot of irons in the fire on the trade side. Then quickly, you've got the Monday UFA thing. I mean, it is a wild 5-6 days here for NHL general managers. I mean, absolute chaos. Talking to some people that are in upper management around the league. I mean, it has been it's a lot. It's a ton going on. It's this compressed amount of time where the finals just ended. So your buyout window, I think, probably only opened tomorrow or today, and then it's right into the draft round 1 and 2, and then free agency should be incredibly chaotic. Let's get to our next guest. We do that for our good friends at Outdoor Dental. As if you're ready to experience dentistry with no needles and no drills, no stress, check out Outdoor Dental. It's outdoor.dental. They've got the Soleil laser treatment, an incredible solution for not just dental things, but how about people that, have snoring issues? You can do 2 to 15-minute treatments to increase the tension in the soft palate. That'll reduce your snoring. It's a non-surgical and pain-free way to make a huge impact in your sleep, not to mention your partner's sleep next to you. For more information, go to outdoordental.com. Let's bring in our managing editor and head honcho of FlamesNation.ca, Ryan Pike. Pike, I know you were watching the Frank hit with great interest there. There's a ton going on. Let's break this down and put it into the Calgary lens of what Craig Conroy has accomplished to this point, what the next 48, 72 hours look like, and then what you expect to see Monday in free agency.
Well, I mean, Craig's probably like a kid in a candy store. I mean, the club has been dealing with the flat cap as everyone else has been pretty much since like 2019. And this year it's jumping to 88 million, and it coincides with the Flames getting a lot of fairly big contracts off their books. And as a result, as we sit right now, if you look at the guys who are basically shoe-ins for the NHL roster, he's got $24 million to work with. And what are the big pieces for him to get done? He has to negotiate some kind of a contract with Dustin Wolf, and I can't imagine Wolf will be terribly expensive considering he's played 18 games in the NHL, so that's probably not terribly expensive. And then you got to hash something out with Oliver Kylington, and then you basically have, at that point, probably 19, 20 million, something in that range to work with.
So, I would think so. They're 23 and change right now. They've got almost a full roster. You put Kylington in there, I feel like that's probably the group of defensemen you move forward with. Maybe there's room for another forward, but they are swimming in cap space, Pike.
Yeah, and I think it gives them the ability to do a lot of different things. They could be a broker. I mean, we just saw San Jose get a pretty decent defenseman in Jake Wallman and get a second round pick for their troubles because Detroit has other things they want to do with their cap space. So I think there's going to be a lot of teams out there that look at a team like Calgary as a potential fit for something like that. Maybe even not now. Maybe it's something that they deal with at the trade deadline, because, if you look at the crystal ball, you guys have been talking about it on the show for a while, Sharon Govich, Mangiapane, and Kuzmenko, all on expiring deals. I don't know if they're all going to be here long-term. So you're looking at potentially at least one of those guys being moved by or before the trade deadline. So there's a lot of different things that Conroy could do. And I think, we've talked about, the challenges of, for lack of a better term, shoveling out the barn after a contention window closes. And, Craig has basically had a lot of messes to clean up since he got into the big chair. And I think now you could take a look at what they have and go, okay, there's a lot of flexibility here that they didn't have before. And especially going into this weekend, you got 9 draft picks. You got 6 first-round picks in the next 3 drafts. And you have a lot of ability to do things you probably could not have done in a different situation.
So I'll frame this 2 ways. On one hand, I would not have put any money down that Oliver Kylington and the Calgary Flames would be 6 days away from free agency and no deal would be in place. And then on the other hand, chatting with Craig last week, which is up on our YouTube page and we tacked on to the end of Monday's show, it just feels like this is a matter of terms and not if. Oliver Kylington is still expected to get signed, but boy, Ryan, this is taking way more time than we thought it was going to take.
I'll say this. What is Oliver Kylington? And I mean no disrespect to the player, but for a guy that's basically missed almost 2 years of professional hockey, and he looked really good when he came in January, and I think we can reasonably surmise that that's him joining the season in a less than ideal circumstance, mid-season without a full training camp so that's probably the floor for Oliver Kylington. The floor for Oliver Kylington is he's a pretty good third pairing defenseman, maybe a decent second pairing guy. But what do you pay him when he hasn't played in a while, and you're trying to figure out how to project him, and you're trying to figure out how he fits in to the long term? Because if you're the Calgary Flames, you don't really necessarily want to be signing Oliver Kylington and then doing this dance again. You would love to lock him in at a number, but it's got to be a number that makes sense. But talking to folks around the team and around the league, I wouldn't frame anything as contentious. The Flames have a lot of admiration for him as a person and as a player, and I think that showed through the last 2-3 years in terms of how they've gone about handling a situation. And I would say that feeling is mutual. I think there's a lot of respect from Kylington's camp in terms of the Flames would have been well within the rights to be more open with what was going on with him, but they wanted to respect the players' privacy. And I think that goes a long way, not just with Kylington, but with players around the league that might be considering the Calgary Flames. But again, he's a unicorn. He's 27, turning 28. He doesn't have a lot of miles on him because of the minutes that he or the years that he missed. So he could potentially still have upside that they haven't touched yet. But it's just a question of how do you project that?
Yeah, I agree. I loved him with Chris Tanev, but all of a sudden you're talking that was year one of Daryl Sutter, his first full season. That's a while ago. And I didn't love him with Rasmus Andersson in the role they were put in last year, but it was also a tougher year for Rasmus. And I don't know that he's going to be on a defensive matchup pair. If you told me Chris Tanev was there, I'd say, oh, he's a second pair defenseman, Ryan. But given what he's got to work with on his right side, I'm not so sure what he is. And I think that's probably why it's hard to price, because if he's just hard and fast a second pair guy, what that's worth. And well, if he's just a 5 and we can use him on our second power play unit, well, you kind of got an idea, a ballpark of what that's worth. I think that's probably the gap we're in, isn't it?
Yeah, and looking at it from his camp's perspective, if you were coming to me and say, hey, I know you've gone through like an absolute shit show in your life the last 2 years, you're probably looking for some stability, want to do a 1-year deal, that probably doesn't really resonate. So I think if I'm him, I'm probably looking for a longer term deal. If I'm the Flames, I'm probably looking for a longer term deal too at the right number. And I think, you want to make sure that you're allowing yourself some flexibility. And I think the fact that the Flames have as much cap space as they do helps, because they have the ability to roll the dice on him. But I think listening to what Craig was telling you guys in conversations I've had with Craig over the last year, I don't think if you behave as if you're a kid in a candy store with your cap space, pretty soon you're not going to have any cap space. So I think they're operating, the analytics department, the stats department that Chris Snow built is really dialed into basically everything the club does. I think they have trade value projections for every single player in the organization, and I think they have cap projections for every single player in the organization. And I think even if you have $24 million in cap space, you have to act as if you have basically none and operate like that, because, if you blow all the cap space in July, guess what? You don't have it in March. And I think that's the mindset they're operating with.
Yeah, I certainly think they might try to add some pieces, but there's no way I envision them heading into the season with anything but tons of cap space to still have that flexibility that you spoke of that has been so, I guess, rare in the last decade for the club. Okay, so Friday they have pick number 9. They have pick number 28. That's right now. They also have 6 other picks in the first 4 rounds, 2 in the first, 2 in the second, 2 in the fourth. Not to mention 2 firsts next year, 2 firsts in 2026, even after surrendering 1 to Montreal in 2025. What are your expectations for Conroy Friday night, his second full draft as general manager of the Flames? It certainly is. I'm ready for all kinds of surprises and plot twists. And this guy's not supposed to slide this far. I can't believe this guy's available. I mean, I think it's going to be wild Friday night.
Yep. And, hearing Frank's, throw out the idea that the Flames might entertain trading up, I wouldn't rule anything out with the Flames. With the way this first round looks, if a player falls to you that you love, that looks like he's sliding, they have the ability to stand pat and get a good player. And, the way this first round is set up, there's about 12 to 15 guys sort of in that top ledge. And then there's a drop off, and then a bit more of a drop off after about 2021. And so if you're the Flames, you're thinking, man, you could slide back and gain a pick and still get somebody you like. Maybe you use that 28th pick and something else to move up into that above the 21 ledge and then get somebody in sort of that second ledge. Maybe you can move up to a little bit higher. And like I said, they have those UFAs potentially. I think Andrew Mangiapane was on Frank's trade board. So yeah. I don't, I'm going into this weekend going, I don't really know what to expect. And that kind of excites me because I think they have a lot of things they'd feel comfortable doing if the price is right.
The other thing they have is they have a need everywhere. I mean, I think goalie's the only spot I don't expect them to make some serious waves, Pike. And I mean, they like Wolf. They've got to give him some time to see what he is. It's also not a great draft for goalies. You might not see one in the first 3 rounds. But you have great need to find top 4 defensemen, top pair guys. You have no real dynamic, game-changing winger yet. Maybe Coronado is one, and you certainly don't have a young franchise center. It's a really nice spot to be in at 9 because whatever slides is going to be something you need, whether that's a winger, a centerman, or a defenseman.
Yeah, I think, this is the type of draft where I don't know if there's sort of a lot of truly elite or quasi-elite level guys outside of the first 2 or 3, but there's a lot of good players that are going to be available. Like, I mean, just looking at the various mock drafts, there's guys that'll be available at 9 that some guys, some teams, some draft rankers will have in the top 5 or top 6. Like, there's going to be a lot of chaos. And, even at 28, I mean, the Flames are probably going to get somebody they really like at 28. There's, we just posted our annual aggregate rankings at the site, and there's probably, I'd say, I don't know, 40, close to 40 players that have gotten first round consideration by multiple major draft rankers, which means if you're the Flames sitting at 41, you're going to get somebody that you or someone smart that's not you thinks is a first round caliber talent. And, that's the beauty of this year's draft, and B, the beauty of having so many picks. You're going to be able to go further down, and, you're probably pretty happy with guys that you pick, well into the 3rd and 4th rounds. We're going to hear, we're sitting there on Saturday, we'll have heard of some of these guys taking the 3rd and 4th rounds because that's how deep this draft class is in sort of the 2nd and 3rd levels.
Do you have a dreamboat of a guy for the Flames out there? Is there one? I mean, the obvious off the ice storyline is TJ Ginla, but he's certainly not the only dynamic player that could be available to him at 9. Is there one where you're like, oh boy, that certainly would really help turn around this transition from rebuild into competitive play?
One of those defensemen, I think Stephen Ellis put it really well in his draft rankings, calling Sam Dickinson from London the quote unquote safe pick. But Sam Dickinson, Sam Dickinson is just really good at everything. And if you're a Flames club that has a lot of some stay-at-home guys in your system and some really high-end offensive guys that might need someone to watch their back a bit defensively, Dickinson can play with anybody because he's really well-rounded. So I think if you're the Flames, you're not going to get Levshunov, you're not going to get, Demidov. I'm nervous about Silyev just because I don't know what his offensive ceiling is. Right. But if you can get Zane Parekh, if you can get Zeev Buam, if you can get Sam Dickinson, one of those 3 guys, if failing TJ Ginla landing somewhere else, if you get one of those 3 defensemen, you're probably going to leave that first round going, okay, we filled a need pretty well.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's funny because we had Stephen Ellis on our mock draft that ran this morning, and it was Sam Dickinson that went to the Flames at number 9. And he also said it is considered a safe pick, as you noted, but he said Evan Bouchard was considered that safe pick too. And then all of a sudden it took time, but when everything clicked, there's a hell of a ceiling there. Like, for all the success Sam Dickinson's had, people don't think he's a dynamic thinker of the game yet. And that really only speaks to that this might be an incredibly high ceiling selection for the Flames if he's available.
Yeah, and I'll point out one more guy. We talked about TJ Ginla being potentially a fantastic story. Michael Hage from the Chicago Steel. Yep. He's a center, same system that produced Matt Coronado. He's one of those guys that he's looking like he'll go somewhere in the late teens, like 18, 19, 20. I've seen some lists have him, just after the Flames pick. But if you're the Flames and maybe you don't get the guy you really love, maybe you look at a trade back scenario and see if you can slide back a couple picks, gain a second or third rounder and get Michael Hage, because big center, dynamic, great personal story. He's dealt with a lot of adversity off the ice between injuries and some family tragedies, but he got the character box ticked. He got the dynamic play ticked. He plays a position of need, and he's from a USHL's team, and it's the Steel that, outside of maybe the London Knights, is probably the best producer of NHL ready talent in North America.
Jeez. Interesting. Can't wait for you to get down here and cover it in greater length, Pike. One final one for you. What do you expect July 1? Are we going to see some significant dollars on a guy for the Flames that might stabilize an area of the roster? Are we going to see that quad A around the edges work? Or are we going to see Craig Conroy put the phone on mute and just smile ear to ear and wait for GMs to call to get him to help them out of pickles?
I think a little of everything. I think you're probably looking to see if you can, add some center help. I like Connor Zary at center, and I think long term he might be that, but you probably want to have someone to insulate him a bit potentially, and someone to mentor him a bit potentially. I think, I don't know if they're going to add much in the wings at the NHL level, but maybe some guys, like if you look at the depth charts, they're probably losing Ben Jones from the Wranglers to free agency. You probably want to grab some center depth there. They have some young guys in their system they want to give some reps to, but I think they also want to provide some insulation. And at the AHL level, I mean, you look at the NHL, their goalies are a guy who's played 18 NHL games and a guy with a bad hip who just came off major surgery. So you probably want to go out and spend some money on getting a third guy to insulate Valtteri Ignatiu a bit and give him a bit of runway. And so, if you're the Flames, I don't think you necessarily need to, burn through your cap space, but I could see them, dropping a good $8 to $10 million here and there just to sort of fill positions of need. And I think they also have the ability to help other teams get creative. I think they could be a banker, and, they've done a lot of very nice work with the last little while, creating that flexibility. And it's going to be very interesting to see when they exploit it.
Great stuff, Pike. Do appreciate it. When do you get down here, and how much, suntan lotion can you bring? I'm hiding in the shade, but at some point I will have to face the sun. I need help. I need your help.
Oh, I'm gonna die out there. It's I'm always struck at the humidity, and it's like it's like sitting in a convection oven. But
yes,
yeah, I'm supposed to land at I think 10 a.m. on Thursday, and I much like Frank's strategy to avoid getting sucked into the Pinder vortex is being at a completely different hotel. I insulate myself a little bit more. I put an international border between us for a few days, and then I go down. So I think between how busy we'll be with the draft and all the other stuff we got going on, I think your ability to destroy my life and liver diminished, not negated completely, but a little bit diminished.
It's about mitigating risk. That's what it is, Pike, and I appreciate you doing that. Thanks so much for joining us here, and can't wait to get you down here. It is like walking into an oven. Like, Jack, if you ever the appetizer, like the potatoes are done. Okay, but I'm not done on the barbecue. Okay, just put the oven on low and leave the potatoes in. Like, that's all of Vegas. You walk out and it's like, whoo. When you open the oven door, there's just that air wafts over you. That's the whole bleeping desert. Feels like that. It is sweating in the shade. So, Pike, we'll see you soon. Thanks for popping on. I appreciate it.
See you tomorrow, buddy.
Jack, do you have any appetizers in the oven heating?
No, I got nothing.
That is what we are doing here. We are literally just staying warm for those who will eat us later, or it feels at least that way. Big thank you to Outdoor Dental for bringing on Pike today. Again, if you've got any issues with snoring, I don't know if Pike's that guy. He's going to be fine this week because he's all on his own. But you got a partner. You got to think about them. Check out that Soleil laser snoring treatment they do, outdoor.dental. I have done it, pain-free, 2 15-minute sessions, significant improvement in my sleep and, more importantly, my wife's sleep. So can't thank Dr. J enough and encourage you to go check that out on your own. Jackie, we've pieced together a Pinder report. Do you want to walk through this with me, amigo?
Yeah, let's do it. But before we get into it, we're getting a lot of people in the comments saying that this is a green screen. No one believes you're in Vegas. There's no chicks in bikinis. Are we going to have to get you in the pool? That's not enough. No. You couldn't.
Can I get in the pool? Let's do that. We're going to get in the pool here. Okay, ready?
Yeah. Maybe we can do it at the end.
We do it at the end. We're going to end the show. Just tarps off in the pool.
Tarps off into the pool.
I'm really hot. I could do it now. I literally just showered the mullet.
Yeah, if you want to go for a swim, go ahead.
I'm just going to do that. We're just going to go waist high. Here we go.
That was lame.
How's that, you jerks? What do you think of that? Yeah, we actually are here. What it is we're on a balcony above the main level. So these are all like VIP cabanas that look into this screen. You walk down a flight of stairs behind me, and then there's even more pools, and it's all the lawn chairs. We got a little more quiet and secluded area up here to broadcast from, but it's pretty cool. I'm like checking Copa America odds while I'm watching Euro, and there's baseball on, and there's some other decent scenery around here as well too. I do promise you that. It's just they're not walking behind the camera. Would you in your bikini, Jack, walk behind a camera that's shooting on a live on YouTube, or would you just take the pass on that?
Yeah, I'd probably just get out of the way.
All right,
let's need to see me.
Let's get to the Pinder report. We do it for Village Honda in the Northwest Auto Mall and online at villagehonda.com. Hey, go get that calendar of yours. Get the red ink. Mark it in there. August 24th. It is their 4th annual Honda and Acura Show and Shine. Bigger and better every year, so you know this one's going to be the best. There are awards for Best in Show, Best in Modified, Best Classic, and new for this year, a People's Choice Award. You can register now online at villagehonda.com. August 24th up at the Northwest Auto Mall. I know Anthony and the gang very excited about that. Okay, let's we just finished with Pike. Let's get right back to him. We kick off the Pinder report with what's going on at Flames Nation. As you can see here, a little primer. What have the Flames done in the draft? What have they not done? Well, Pike nails it with the headline. The record isn't spotless, but they found a lot of value in the first round of the draft. We did our draft primer show. That's still up on YouTube. If you haven't checked it out, it's very, very thorough. It's what? 220, 205, 210. A lot of time setting up the top 15 prospects in the draft. But before all that, really looking at the Flames draft history, organizational needs. They had a 3-year period there where they just absolutely crushed drafts out of the park. You brought in the likes of Tkachuk, Fox, Dubé, Kylington, Anderson. Like it was a really nice run there. You've had other years that are really lean. Mixed bag, probably the best way to describe what they've done, but more over at flamesnation.ca with Pike breaking down the first round specifically. As for the draft, here's what we're looking at. 2 days away, bit of an earlier start. Vegas time, as you can see here, 7 Eastern means 4 Pacific, and then it's an early start out here, 8:30 in the morning on Saturday. No thanks. I'm just going to fly home instead, Jack, if that's okay with you on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't think you need to be there any longer.
Thanks,
do we have a plan for Friday?
You know what? We'll have information about that tomorrow. I know we're solidifying them, but you're going to be able to hang with us, watch with us, and not unlike the outdoor game in Edmonton. When was that? October 29, I think it was. We're going to just hang out. We got, I know, Mike Gold going to join us, Kent Wilson going to join us. We'll see if we get a Western Leaguer. Cammy will probably be able to jump on and talk about whether it's Lindstrom or Iginla or Berkeley Catton, Carter Yakimchuk, lots of Western Leaguers in the top dozen here. So we'll welcome the whole Flames Nation family in. We might even hear from the grumpy old men as well with Boomer and Rhett after the round 1 selection. So we'll be doing things Friday, but certainly will be more solidified come tomorrow's show. NHL has been dropping these profiles. Jack, you're going to love this one because it's got a football tie-in. We've heard a lot about Caden Lindstrom. There he is, the Medicine Hat Tiger, who just physically imposing, incredibly fast, hard-hitting, well over a point a game, dynamic playmaker and finisher. Here's the trivia you're going to love. Not only is this guy the top prospect, the 2024 CHL top prospect award winner, but here's a guy that played other sports. And in fact, look at his 40 time, Jack. You would appreciate this as a football guy. What was it? A 4.38 40-meter dash. Like, wow. What are we talking about here? That's insane.
Would have been the 13th best result in last year's NFL Combine. That is insane.
Love, put some skates on that cat and line up someone in the corner. I saw this and I loved it. You know, I like a good high kick. I found my, not my match, but my absolute final boss. There's no way I'm beating him. Sergei Bobrovsky ripping it up with the cup, Jacko. Loves the high kick, and so do I. Drunken camera work, but that's to be expected. We're a couple days into the party here. Look how high he gets here, guys. mind-bending stuff. Like, what? Kick a basketball hoop. Oh my God. This is my guy. You look like Gumby or what? Kicking double his height. Classic goalie flexibility. Kings and the Ducks making a splash. The two greater LA teams have tweaked their uniforms. We saw the new logo from the Kings a while back. How about this from the Ducks? I don't know how long Trevor Zegras is going to be there, but that's a vibe from the Ducks, who go back to that Mighty Ducks logo with the duck mask and the cross sticks and a lot of orange there. There's Radko Gudas, noted pugilist and intimidating human. I need a Jack yeah or nay on the Ducks orange new look here.
I love these. These are awesome.
Kind of with you. Yeah, I don't know that like right now it hits. I know fashion goes in circles. Right, I love this. If you showed me this 15 years ago, I probably thought it would suck. But right now, this seems to work. I like the orange.
I love it. What do you think Rhett would think of these? A little too flashy, or would he be in on it? Yeah.
He's just like, why do you look like the Cleveland Browns? Kings, they showed us their new logo. It's kind of a throwback to the Gretzky era with some of the just little modern tweaks. I like that. Those are clean and simple, and it's back to the good old days for the Kings. Not the cups and the 10s, but the Gretzky in the 90s vibes. Need the Jack rating.
Like him as well. Classy.
Okay. Let's move. Soccer. We got Euro, but also Copa America, and the Canadians got a huge result yesterday against Peru, whose coach I think is a lunatic. They weren't great. It was pretty sloppy soccer and rather physical, but there was Jonathan David when the Canadians needed it. A huge goal. They win 1-0, and that puts them in good stead heading into their final match of group play. They have a very good Chilean club that they will face in the finale of group play. You win that, they're through. You get a tie, you might even get through at Copa America. That, in fact, you would get through. That will be a fun one to watch come Saturday. Your group standings show Canada right behind Argentina.
Before we move on here, Ryan, we got a special guest jumping in the stream.
Oh, boy. This is what we need. What do we got? Please don't be what I think it is. Okay, I'm loading the video. Oh, no. Get out of here.
What?
Don't you ruin my boondoggle.
It's Copa Canada.
I'm pretending to work
America,
here.
Copa Canada, 1-0, Copa. Is this what happens when I leave? It's nothing but fucking soccer. Get it together. Christ.
That's 30 seconds of soccer. God damn it, Jack.
Copa. Whoopie. Come on now, clean it up. How's Vegas? Did the major show up? Is the major there with you?
The major is like, I'm surrounded. He hasn't got me yet, but you keep hitting the shower, keep hitting the pool, keep the major at bay. We're sweating in the shade here, man. 42 today it's getting to. Woo.
Major Swass loves it in Vegas in June. He loves it there.
Reporting for duty. How's the roadie?
Oh, it's so great. We're in Saskatchewan, so, we're in and out of, what do we got? 5G here. It's like 2G, 1.5G cell service. So it's in and out. But, it's we're into Saskatchewan and it's straight and flat. So I figured I'd jump on because I could take a nap or join you for a few minutes.
I'm surprised you picked what you picked, but hey, you know what? The book's never closed on anyone. Everyone can change. You want to hang with us for a couple of fun items here? Or you might not be able to see the screen.
As long as I can see it, but as long as my cell hangs in, I'm here.
We lose you. That's no big deal. Okay, so we showed you the clips from Matt Tugboat Wilkinson earlier this year. This guy's an absolute unit. Now, he's a former Okotoks dog pitcher, signed by Cleveland, and he is just absolutely mowing guys down in single A. This is his 100th strikeout in 60 innings.
The 1-2 pitch is swung on and missed by Nevin.
Tugboat. Attaboy. Matty Tugboat Wilkinson, the former Okotoks dog. Shout out 100 Ks in 60 innings. Too good for single A, Dino.
That's what they call tidy right there. Some tidy numbers.
You're going to hate this. Of all the hour that you could have come on, look at this thing that we found just for you. I don't know if this is a snake or a millipede or a centipede or or is it AI? This is 8 feet of nightmares. Is this the thing from Tremors? What are we looking at here? That's appalling. Ugh. Oh, do not like. So you've been in this predicament before. That sucks.
Looks like
we'll move along.
that looks like something I left one of those in Brooks about an hour ago at the Petro.
So, yeah, well, and there's nothing worse than when you're in the doing one of those pit stops and you're at a TP, but there actually is something worse. We've got some more stories coming in from Australia. I believe this is Aussie Brad. What do we got?
Name one thing that's worse than running out of toilet paper when having a shit. Yeah, nah.
Oh, just a spider the size of your hand on the toilet paper roll, Dean. You know what? Maybe we don't need a wipe today.
That is a conundrum. That is a conundrum. Like, maybe can I fit my rack under the sink and maybe just get do a bird bath, because that's not going to work. Or you do the little turkey trot into the next stall and hope no one's in there to use the toilet paper in there. That's not ideal.
No bueno. Last one for you. I think you could probably use this if you got a little pond on the farm where you're headed, but certainly Rhett when he moves back home for his vacations. This is an investment. This isn't a toy. This is the floating crocodile head with the motor.
Oh, that's just. Oh man! Again,
you get some laughs in the prairies, but in Florida, oh goodness, who put the O. Henry in the pool?
Yeah, left some O. Henrys, all right.
That's it. That's your Pinder report for today, Dino. It's for our good friends at Village Honda. Right now, the Village Honda demo clear-out event. Village ready to sell their 2024 demo models. You could save hundreds, even thousands of dollars on these vehicles that are like new with extremely low mileage. You're putting on some mileage. What does the rest of this pilgrimage look like back to Manitoba?
Well, we were a little late getting going today. My co-pilot slept in until about 10:30, so we were a little late getting on the go. It's just driving. We'll get there when we get there, but it's a nice day for cruising. That's not fair for people because I got in near the end of the Seravalli hit.
Yeah.
What's cooking? What's the vibe in Vegas?
Man, there's so much going on. First off, this drop just feels like a crapshoot from 2 on. There's lots of drama. There's some teams that we expect to make major waves, be it Utah with the cap space and the willingness to spend and want to win. Ottawa, New Jersey, and Buffalo don't feel like they need another prospect. They'd rather fast forward things. And then on top of that, you got the Marner, Natchez, Chychrun drama to unfold, and Stamkos, Guentzel, Reinhart, Tanev, Marchessault. Those guys are still unsigned heading into UFA. I mean, we're talking about trades, draft, and UFA all in the next 6 days here. This is nuts.
Yeah, and I caught the part with Pike, and I know you guys were talking about Kylington. You and I talked to Craig about it last week. This struck me as something that would have been done by now.
Yeah.
If it was not to say it won't get done, but I was just curious. I wonder what is holding things up. I wonder if the Kylington camp is wondering what else might be out there for us. As good as the Flames have been, and as good as the opportunity seems to be because of plenty of space on that back end, I wonder what the Kylington camp is thinking today.
I do too. And maybe it's not that they're looking elsewhere, but they just know the closer they get to July 1, the more Craig kind of has to honor their ask more than them come to Craig's ask. I think the leverage, they might only be off by $500,000 or $1 million or a year, whatever it is that they're not closed on. But the closer you get to Monday, the more you just have to give the player what he wants, because I wouldn't be surprised if someone else gave the Kylington camp what they were looking for. There's enough tools in there that he would be an appealing guy for other organizations to add. I still think it gets done here, but I don't think the Flames can drive the bus here, not when you're 5 days from free agency.
Yeah, it's a league that caters to what Kylington is good at. You know, the guy can skate, and maybe there's more offense there, but if you're a team that is desperate for some good mobility on the back end, maybe you've got some dough that you would throw at this guy come July 1. I don't know. It's a curious one. I think in a lot of ways the work really now begins for Craig, as challenging as it might have been to find good return for all these guys. It's about putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. The selling for the most part is kind of done. Now it's about making the most of what you got. And if you can hit on a few of these, you're not going to hit on all of them. Nobody does. But that's the challenge. Don't go 1 for 3. Like you did with the Monahan draft. You gotta have a little bit better of a batting average, I would say, than that. At least to shorten the painful years or the time it's going to be before you're good again.
Yeah, it's no question that these things can take a long time. There's one shortcut, and that's you got to hit on your draft picks. And they've got 6 in the first 3 rounds, in the first round, the next 3 years. Excuse me. If you can find a star or 2 in there, and the whiffs aren't big whiffs, but maybe it's, hey, he's a third liner, not a top liner. Like that's how you turn this around quickly. There isn't going to be a Stamkos showing up in free agency to make them good. It has to be done through the draft here. And 2 picks in the first round on Friday as it stands now. We'll see if they add, if they move up, if they slide back, if they put number 28 with a second rounder and try to move up into another tier. I'm fascinated to see how it goes on Friday.
I wonder too. I know we talked about this and I think you kind of bristled at it. There's no way to know. But we've seen now another player. It was Cutter Gauthier, and the Flames fans know what it's okay. Well, maybe Matthew Tkachuk isn't going to sign long term, and Johnny leaves. Now this McGroarty kid. We've seen
Fox.
There's a lot, right? Like there's a lot of it, and we talked about it on the show. I think when Rhett was there. Does that enter your thought process at all when you're using one of these top picks? Because you feel like Iginla, there's probably not a worry of him bolting in 4 or 5 years, right? This is where he's from. This is very much ingrained in who he is.
Yeah.
Whereas for some other kids, you just don't know. I just wonder for some of these teams how much you now have to really think about not just how good is the player, how does he fill out, what does he translate to when he's in his mid-20s, but also, is he going to be with us when he's in his mid to late 20s? I think it's becoming more and more of a concern in a way.
It's funny because the Russians are the guys with the bad rep, and I know people have been talking about this online. This isn't a new idea, but just regurgitating what smarter people than us have been saying. Like, the Russians all show up, like Kaprizov went to Minnesota. Like they're all going. They're not difficult. You got to pay them, but that's everyone. And it's seemingly collegiate Americans are the harder guys to pin down. And
Mishkov's coming over too, right?
Earlier than anticipated. That was thought to be like, oh, geez, that might be 3 years. Well, 1 year later, he's going to arrive and be an impactful player in the Flyers' top 2 lines. I mean, that's a huge win. If you had been aggressive on Americans, on Russians when everyone said stay away, I mean, talk about finding a major, like, huge, like, market misstep. Like, you've found huge value. Like, those guys just have this knock that really hasn't been warranted the last 4 or 5 years. And Americans have been the opposite. It's a safe guy, North American pick. And all of a sudden, that you named a lot of guys that sort of, they're not afraid to use the leverage they have. I will say this. Draft is hard. Even the best teams look dumb at the draft all the time. And if you start limiting passports in your selections, you're making one of the hardest exercises the pro franchises have to do even harder, right? Yeah. That's the one thing I'd say. And again, Tkachuk leaving you isn't the problem. You got a first and 2 at the time, very dynamic players. You did fine on that. It was Fox and Gaudreau and some of these others that really are you're left with nothing, or we'll throw them in on a 5-player deal. The Tkachuk one, you got 3 really valuable parts at the time. And did Huberdeau turn out to what you thought he'd be? Absolutely not. But a first round is a first rounder, and Mackenzie Weegar's a top pair defenseman. It wasn't like the trade was the bad decision. It was more what you did with those assets that you'd love a redo on.
Yeah. I mean, you could talk about till you're blue in the face. I still think if you had your druthers, you'd want the guy that you took in the top 10, the elite young forward.
No, for sure you would. Yep.
Who has all those years left. And
totally.
I don't know how you you're at the draft floor, and especially with the way it looks like this first round is going to go, you don't really have any predictability. It's going to be a lot of shifting on the fly depending on what players go where.
Totally.
And so, do we like him? Is it a position? What was the interview process? Oh, do we think he'll be with us in 5 years? It's too hard to kind of get through, but it's wild. And I know that pisses Warner off because the whole thing is supposed to be, it's an honor to be in the NHL and you play where you get drafted and you thank the hockey gods that you get to do it. So now to see kids that have basically the express route to an NHL job and then kind of thumb their nose at certain markets and certain teams for whatever reason, it burns those guys, and I get it. But it's the world we're in now. It's these kids have seemingly seem to have a lot of leverage sometimes.
They do
to get where they want to be.
And what it really is they're not afraid to use that leverage. I think it's always been there, but boy, would you get read the riot act by the hockey world, and now it's like, we got agents. This is a business.
Yeah.
I've had an advisor since I was 14. Like, I'm an independent contractor. I don't view myself as a blue or a blue jacket or a star. I'm a pro hockey player. I'm going to play for lots of different teams. I will say this. I didn't give that a lot of time earlier, but I think it factors into tie breaks for sure. If you've got two guys in the same box and one played in the O and the other was at Denver University, and that might be a situation they're looking at 9, that might break your tie.
It might be, right? And it could be unfair to the player because you look at there's a lot of players that'd be very happy to play in Calgary. They don't see, and to play in New York is not what they are longing for. But it's got to be, like you say, it's got to be a tiebreaker at the very least at this point for some of these markets, and I think Calgary is one of them. So what's up for the rest of the day now? So you're done.
Well, I mean, I'm thirsty, Dean. I got to tell you something about this heat.
Yeah.
Something about the heat and something about the wardrobe here and the hiring practices. I'm going to need a few drinks delivered to me. And I tell you what, we got an absolute whale of a show coming tomorrow as well. Sounds like we might have Todd Button on, director of scouting for the Calgary Flames. I know Cammie's in the hood. We might be able to get, depending on her flights, a recap on some of the top Western League talent we'll expect to see go in the top dozen. Also, Noodles is going to join us a little early. We'll pre-record, and that'll be a part of the show as well. So the nonstop draft coverage will continue. Safe travel, amigo. Let's check in Friday night when the Flames have got to the podium. We can overreact and falsely prognosticate the future of this player.
Yeah, no promises on my sobriety on a Friday night back home, but we'll see how that goes. Maybe earlier in the day, if you're doing an earlier show, maybe we'll try and we'll see how that goes. But good work down there. It's not easy. They really give the hardest assignments to the toughest people, and you're the guy for that job.
I'm here in the salt mines, Dean. Just another day staving off a fatal injury. Last one. We need a Country Fest update or whatever it is. If you got the tickets secured, you can't not go to this thing. We'd all be very disappointed.
I brought it up. Well, we'll be going. It's just a matter of do we have the tickets? Because somebody bought tickets and for their staff, but they don't know what staff are taking them and what they're using. So it's not a sold out event. Going Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and Jody Messina. Apparently not sold out for Sunday night. So by one way or the other, we'll be there.
So it's not exactly you two at the Sphere. That's what I'm hearing. Okay.
It's not exactly. Yeah, it's not Fish. Not Fish or
not
the Grateful Dead at the friggin' Sphere. So yeah, we'll be there. And then Tuesday. Hey, we'll be reacting to all of this after it's all
wild. Yeah. Hey, enjoy a bit of downtime. It's always fun getting back to your roots or visiting, the old family farm, be it your wife's or yours. So enjoy and definitely hit one of those little motel, restaurant, bar, VLT, meat raffle places that I don't understand. It sounds like fun.
Might go for a cheeseburger deluxe, which it's your French fries, little gravy. Of course, it comes with gravy. It's not even you don't even have to ask for it back there. Yeah. So
crinkle cut fries. That'd be nice.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I love that.
For
sure.
God, yeah. And piled high. You never gripe about the portion size. But yeah, we'll have some updates for you. But that's the extent of it from where I sit today.
Thanks for checking in. We'll chat again soon.
Buddies.
Thanks, Dino.
See you, buddies.
All right, there's Boomcat. Let's get to our Betway bets of the day. Got a little bit of some draft stuff for you. We also have a little bit of open wide for some soccer, as we've got Copa America that'll be taking over the big screens behind us once we get into prime time tonight. With Betway, here's the deal. If you start a new account, scan that QR code we're going to flash on the screen. You can redeem your bonus and get up to $200 back if your first bet loses. It's pretty simple. All you got to do, make a bet. If it wins, hurrah. If it doesn't, no sweat. They're going to return that up to $200. Make sure you, again, redeem your bonus once you've started that new account. Claim that account, that bonus, and yes, the QR code is going to help you get their offer available only outside of Ontario. No minimum bet required. And again, non-Ontarians. That's all we're doing here. Thank you, Betway. Appreciate that. Let's take a look at some draft stuff first. Jack, feels topical. You were hunting around on Betway and found what?
So what we got here is the odds for the third overall pick. And like Frank was saying, 1 and 2 seem to be kind of set in stone, and then 3, it's going to get a little weird.
You know what? 2 isn't even set in stone, but there's a school of thought that Chicago will go Lev Shunov. It wouldn't be surprising if Demidov goes there, but they already have, as we talked about in the mock draft, a lot of small playmaking talented wingers. So to go get that ready-to-play defenseman out of Michigan State would make sense for Chicago. What's interesting here is that Salayev is not the highest on many draft boards here. It's more of a fit with Anaheim. They've got the reigning defenseman of the year last year in the O, the Q, and the Western League. They are flush with talented defensemen. Do they add Anton Salayev, this 6'7" wrecking ball that skates like the wind out of Russia? That could really round out the D group for the next decade potentially. So it's more about fit than talent here with Anaheim at number 3. Salayev's your favorite at plus 125. Lev Shunov still might be available if Demidov goes to Chicago at 2, and then you see Demidov at plus 425. Boy, if he starts to slide, Jack, it'll be interesting. I've heard some people that scout for a living for NHL organizations that think he might get into the neighborhood of the Flames, where you might have to say, look, we weren't thinking about trading up, but if all we have to move up is 1 or 2 slots to get arguably the best winger in the draft. Really interesting stuff with Demidov, who played in the Russian Junior League and absolutely torched the thing. He was too good for it. Seneke's a high rising guy. I don't see him getting up to 3, although we did see him getting lots of love in Bob McKenzie's rankings, his final rankings that just came out. And Caden Lidstrom, it's a big number here at 10-1, Jack, for a guy that I think could be the second best center in this class pretty easily with his size, skill we talked about earlier, and obviously Celebrini going at 1. Interesting.
Very interesting. What do you think the Flames would need to do to trade up in this draft? Are they moving?
Well, it depends how far up you're going, right? And so I would look at teams like Utah at 6 and Ottawa at 7. Utah could use a guy, but they also could address needs in free agency with the huge amount of cap space they have and turn that number 6 pick into another roster player and say, look, we had 2 first-rounders last year in Nashville in the top dozen. We're not lean on prospects. You have the Shimashev as well as the Daniel Boot, the 2 Russian kids that they drafted high last year. I think that pick could be in play. And if you are the Flames and you only have to move up 3 spots, do you have to give number 28 to move up just 3 spots? Maybe it's a second. Is it a pair of seconds? I don't know. I know Puckpedia, who's kind of taken over from Cap Friendly, they've got pick trade valuations based on when picks get moved for each other. There's sort of a value of each pick that, okay, I want to move up 3. Well, is it 4-1 or is it 38-36? Here's the pick that would equal that value. There's some fun little levers to pull on that website, but if you only had to move up 2 or 3 spots, because I think Ottawa is the same as Utah, they might not need a prospect as much as they need a roster player. Maybe it's a Rasmus Anderson to Ottawa and you get, number 8 back or number 7 back and a player. That would be intriguing to me. And that's only 2 spots higher. I wonder what it would cost. I don't think the Flames want to give up 28, but if you start talking about a second or 2 seconds, who cares if you can get the guy you want in the top 9?
Exactly. And they have tons of picks. So
yeah, 8 in the first 4 rounds.
Curious. Let's get to the next one here. This will be the 4th overall pick.
Okay, so at 4, we see Lindstrom all of a sudden is the heavy favorite. And it's funny because Salayev, who we saw as the favorite for number 3, is at plus 700 to get to 4. Like it does speak to that fit with Anaheim versus other teams. Demidov there at plus 275. He might be long gone at 2, and the slide might continue. Columbus is interesting. You could go Fantilli, Lindstrom down the middle for a long time, or you had Demidov, that skilled winger, into that talented big group of prospects they've got. This draft is absolutely nuts, man. It really is. I think this will be a ton of fun to watch transpire on Friday night.
Yeah,
let's go to some Copa America. I got a bet for that tonight. Mexico, Venezuela. Mexicans been not exactly a golden generation, but a tough run for them. They're usually the dominant team in CONCACAF. It has not been that. They've turned over the roster to a younger group. If I can get them a plus money to beat Venezuela, I'm taking it. They're plus 115. I might have to be in the pool for that one. It is screaming hot here, and I'm sweating in the shade. Those are bets of the day for Betway. And again, scan that QR code and redeem your bonus when you start a new account. You can get up to $200 back if your first bet loses. Man, we're going to have some fun here. One other way we can contribute, want to encourage you all to hit the Great Clips inbox. The email address is greatclipsinbox@flamesnation.ca. We'll dive into that tomorrow. Don't be messing around, waiting in line at a barbershop. Get the Ready Next app from Great Clips, and they'll give you the 15-minute warning. You can look at different locations, see how the queues are going. Your time's valuable. Don't mess around. Go to Great Clips. It's going to be great, and we'll get into some great emails, comments, questions, and maybe even just some nostalgic old comments tomorrow on the program. Should be fun. Noodles. We're working on a high-profile Flames guest. We might have Cammie joining us. She's set to land in Vegas today, I believe. And more and more Flames content as we get another day closer to round 1 of the 2024 draft. It's the first time the Flames had multiple first-rounders in a long time, and we'll see if they move up, add another, try to get that second pick higher, or slide back and get more assets. Everything's on the table for Craig Conroy and his second draft at the helm of the Calgary Flames as their general manager. Thanks for being with us. Big shout-out to our friends here at Stadium Swim at the Circa Hotel on Fremont here in downtown Vegas. We're going to have some fun. Hope you've enjoyed it. And again, if you haven't had a chance, dive into a lot of that draft content we've been churning out the last few weeks. The draft primer went up, I believe, early in the week. Mock draft went this morning. If you haven't checked that out, that's a ton of fun. Get acquainted with these players we're going to be hearing about Friday night. The top dozen has all kinds of intriguing different types of players, and one might be the next face of the Calgary Flames. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow, buddies.